So that's our pear tree, and there's still some pears on it. You can see a lot of pears on the ground. And we've gotten about 4 boxes of pears, and you'll see the size of those boxes. 4 boxes full, about this size. This is the last box to go. Some of them are going bad before I can get to them, so I come out with these handy dandy buckets that we got from our grocery store bakery and sort good pears and bad pears, and the bad pears, bad to us, go down to the chickens, for whom they are very exciting, partly because they're full of bugs and the chickens like the bugs almost as much as they like the pears. So that's the outside pear activity. We'll head in and show the inside pear activity. Inside pear processing, these are ones that I've determined are in pretty good shape, and I've, out of necessity, come up with a process where I first just cut a bunch of them in half, and then thank heavens for the internet and me being able to stand on the shoulders of giants. Someone was using a melon baller, and that is making all of this go much faster, including when I do find a rotten spot. And then again, this handy dandy bucket goes down to the chickens. I've been taking these pears and turning them into a few different things. Last night we had pear pie. I made it just like an apple pie, except used pears. And so far we have in our big crock weighted down by a plate so they stay underwater, but these are pickled pears in there, and they'll stay fine in there through the winter. The plate just is a weight to keep them moist, and you can just pull them out and eat them as you please. I don't know how long those will last once we discover how delicious they are. Then these are vanilla cinnamon canned pears, and I think if I do this over again, I will filter the liquid before putting it in. It's sugar water, but not a whole lot of sugar because they're Seckel pears, so they're already super sweet. And then some vanilla and cinnamon stick that sits in the syrup for a while, but you can see that some of the pear pulp has broken down in the syrup. So it's not pretty enough to give as a gift, but we tested and they are, on the other hand, pretty delicious. So we'll eat those, not share. Last but not least, certainly, and we enjoyed some on our pancakes this morning, is pear butter. And since I'm making more of that with the pears that you just saw, I'll take some video. So I've gotten a large enough batch of the pears halved and the seeds and stems out. I have about 5 cups of water in my pot. I'm going to add just 1.5 cups of sugar. They're Seckel pears, so they are already quite sweet. With other pears, I might use more sugar. And then I'm also going to put in 2 cinnamon sticks. Going to go ahead and turn that on high to get the sugar to melt down. And I am going to add the recipe that I found said 1/2 tablespoon of vanilla, but I really like vanilla. So I'm adding a full tablespoon. This will heat up and the sugar will melt, and I will be putting the pears in there as soon as that happens. So the sugar water has come to a boil, and it's been boiling for about a half a minute, which is good. I'm going to turn that down and add in the pears. They'll soften as they heat up, and when they are softer, we will run them through the KitchenAid. I have a food mill attachment on my KitchenAid, and that's certainly the easiest way to do this. I can also, we have a hand crank food mill for, I don't know if all the lights go out or something, and we still must have our pear jelly. And if you really want to, you can just mash them. Pears are fairly soft, so they're easy to break down. So the pears are ready. I test them by sticking a fork in, and when it just goes easily into the pears, those are ready to go through the food mill. And I use our KitchenAid food mill attachment, which is a real time saver. It's one of my favorite things in the entire kitchen is the KitchenAid and its accessories. And it's really noisy, so I'm going to tell you about what I'm going to do first, and then we'll see if we can't toss in some shots of it being done. But I'm going to be scooping the pears into this upper hopper, and then using this plunger from my other favorite kitchen accessory, my Vitamix, to push them down through. The pureed pears will come out into this bowl, and then the waste will come out into this bowl. And when I did this yesterday, I discovered that the waste still had a lot of pears in it, so I ran it back through to get everything that I possibly could out of the pears, and so that worked. So now I'll just do this. So here's the outcome of the first batch that we've run through the food mill, and you hopefully can see that it's pretty watery, but it needs to cook down anyway, so that won't be a problem. And then I did run this through twice, and that's all the waste from that whole pile of pears that went into the pan. And in an effort to continue keeping waste down, I still have all of that water and the cinnamon sticks in the pan. So I have more pears ready to go. I'm going to turn that back on. Get the next batch in there and keep going. One of the things that I learned yesterday, I saved the water after I had run all the pears through the food processor. And I thought, oh, well, I'll add that to iced tea or something. It's just flavored sugar water. And then I tasted it, and it tasted pretty disgusting. So I'll admit to having thrown that out. It wasn't worth keeping, but it can be reused. And I do, while I'm cooking the pears down, I do keep the cinnamon sticks in there to continue adding that cinnamon flavor. Quick note about running your fruit through a second time. I did this last year when I was processing apples, and the machine got bogged down and I actually broke my food mill attachment, which was an unhappy day in our kitchen.
You sheared the auger.
Yeah.
It's a stainless steel fitting.
So when I go big. So be careful when you're doing this that it is still plenty moist, and if it sounds like it's bogging down, it is bogging down. It's not worth getting that extra tablespoon of pears out of there. You know, just turn your machine off at that point.
They also, I believe, have a sacrificial plastic gear in there that
Yes.
we've had to replace once before.
Yes, because I
And-
didn't read the bread making instructions. I'm a girl, what can I say?
I thought it was a guy thing.
Guys read instructions,
We do?
don't they? I don't know.
I thought we weren't supposed to.
read.
I don't know. I don't think anybody
Neither
does.
of us is reading the instructions.
Maybe small children read the instructions.
There we go. We need a small child. We'll take volunteers. So my helper has joined us, and they're right. You can't find good help anymore. He's not being very useful in the pear butter process, but on the other hand, he's adorable, so we'll forgive him. I've gotten all of the pears that will fit in the bowl and the pan through the food mill. So I'm going to pour those into my pan very carefully because I'm sure to make a big mess at this. Voila! And this is the point where you'd want to taste it to see if you need more sugar. Because recipes are guidelines, they're not laws. So it's all personal preference. I think that's delicious. I'm not touching it, except I'm going to put the 2 cinnamon sticks back in so it will take in more cinnamon flavor. It gives it a more layered result. And that will go on to medium. You can see how high it is in the pan now. This is a 5.5 quart pan. And we'll check in over the course of this cooking down. Okay, so it's been about 1.5 hours, and when we first poured this in, it was up around this handle rivet, and I would say it's down about 1 inch. And you can see that rather than having it at a hard boil, it is simmering. There's occasional bubbles coming up through, but it's certainly not a hard boil. The advantage of that is that it needs less stirring. You can also see that the cinnamon has unraveled, which I think is kind of neat. The advantages of simmering over boiling are that you do not have to stand and stir at your stove, which frees you up to multitask. So we'll come back in another hour. It's about halfway to finished. So I'll show you where it will be in the pan and what it will look like when I consider it finished. So we're at about the 3-hour mark now, and it had gone down about another inch, but I just added in chunks of pear, which I'm going solo right now, so hopefully you can see those chunks of pears rather than just having it be one consistency. I prefer having the 2 consistencies. So that raised the level of it back up again because I put in probably 10 or 15 seckel pears, increasing the level again. So we're just going to let it keep cooking. So there it is. It's officially pear butter. It has cooked down quite a bit. We started up here and now we are down there. You can see that there's not a lot of water on top. There is still moisture, so it's a butter rather than a hard jelly or a jam, but it is a completed pear butter. I'm gonna get started on canning and we will go through that in a separate video. So enjoy. I'm gonna be enjoying this, and if we're friends, you probably will be sometime soon too.